Hello and welcome to the Big Rissue, where we're tracking the first 100 days of Rishi Sunak's premiership. Today is day 76 and I am joined by Rory Taylor, our social media coordinator.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Very good. It's been a long time since we've done this.
It has,
since
and
any of
yet
us have done this.
nothing's happened really.
Christmas, New Year,
New
all
Year.
sorts.
But
Crazy things going on.
Yeah, all sorts of crazy things going on, but not really in the world of politics. That is, except for a major speech made by Rishi Sunak. So he seems to have taken a bit of time off over Christmas to relax and unwind.
Come into the new year with a
new year fresh.
big speech, yeah.
And he did his big speech on the 4th of January. So he wasted no time really in hitting the ground running, not just hitting the ground. Like there's just she actually, do you know what she predicted that?
She was completely right. Yeah,
she was completely right. That is we're starting off a politics podcast with a very out of date reference that only a small handful of people get.
40-day period as well.
Yeah, very strange. Okay, so this speech that Rishi Sunak did on the 4th, first speech of 2023, it was supposedly to set the agenda of the government for this year and for this government, really. It's I think only one of the pledges actually had a time aspect to it.
Yeah.
So it's just...
it's basically putting out the priorities, their priorities for the coming year.
But he boiled those down to 5 key... I don't know what to call them. Promises, I guess?
Priorities. I think that's what he called them. Priorities.
They're almost benchmarks to which he wants us to judge his government.
Yeah, they're kind of pledges, promises, priorities.
Do you want to run through what those 5 are?
I'm happy to. Should I just do it?
Just do it,
okay.
Yeah, let's just go.
Priority... I hate the word priority. It's hard to say when you say it too many times.
Yes.
Number 1, halve inflation this year. Number 2, grow the economy. Number 3, make sure national debt is falling. Number 4, bring down NHS waiting lists. And number 5, pass new laws to stop small boats crossing the channel. So
should we get into these and talk about them one by one? Because there were some other elements to the speech which I think we should talk about a little bit later. But I think these are probably a good place to start. So we'll start with number 1, halving inflation. So this is his big thing. Cost of living is dominating politics at the minute, both in the UK, around the world. Something that, we bring up a lot. People are really struggling with this. Bringing down inflation is going to be key to trying to address this. When goods that people are buying every day are going up by, 10, 11% each year. That's quite a lot. It's making things quite difficult. So halving inflation seems like a good place to start. From what I've read, this was going to happen anyway.
Yeah, I think Bank of England, OBR, and all those other kind of institutions predicted that inflation would fall over this year. So this isn't a surprising thing for Rishi Sunak to say or to commit to. It does feel slightly like he's giving himself a freebie with this first one. He knows it's going to happen, or I think it's safe to assume inflation will come down this year unless something terrible goes wrong. But yeah, it's like he's giving himself one that he knows he can definitely tick off by the end of the year.
I think it's even. I think you're being even potentially generous there. Yeah. I think the OBR suggested that inflation is going to drop to about 3.8% by the end of the year. Already, inflation at the end of last year was 11.1%.
Yeah.
So some very basic maths tells you that's a sort of 2/3 reduction.
It's more than half.
That's not significantly more than half, but still, it's more than half. 3.8 would be a good place to end on. But the fact that the OBR already suggests that's going to happen, and Rishi Sunak then coming out and going, we're gonna have, like, that's a very very easy first one that requires very little action from Sunak. And honestly, I think that this again builds into this thing with Sunak, which is that he came into office at a time of cost of living crisis and everything. He earlier last year made a ton of promises about what he would do to try and fix the economy and fix the country, trusted the opposite of those, and he sort of come in not knowing what to do and not really willing to make much change. He's not really done much since he came into office. He's given himself these ridiculous freebies in these sort of 5 promises that he's calling them, all of which are probably going to... I'm sure we're going to get into the ones in a second, but I'm sure these are going to basically happen anyway, or are very easy to achieve. He's done one speech which outlines some vague goals for the year, no specific policies, no specific promises, no specific plan for getting the country back on track. Just a lot of platitudes. Again, we'll get onto it a bit later. He talks a lot about like family and things like that. Nothing to do with what people want at the minute are specifics.
Plans,
If you're a family, if you're struggling with inflation, if you're struggling with cost of living, inflation's crippling you, you're struggling to pay rent, struggling to pay for food, struggling to pay for heating. You don't want Rishi Sunak on TV saying we're going to halve inflation when the OBR already predicts that inflation is going to drop 2/3 already. You want some specific plans and promises.
He did say it was either in that speech or in the Q&A afterwards, but he said he would set out the plans to achieve those goals in the coming months, which is fair enough. But when you are starting the year with this big speech saying, this is what we're going to do this year, it's to say the coming months are when you're going to have your plans released. It's pretty vague, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
But the other thing with the inflation one, actually, I saw a few like economics journalists and stuff saying this on Twitter, that inflation, technically the job of managing inflation is down to the Bank of England and their monetary policy committee, which is separate from the government. So in a way, that first pledge is not actually something that he can actually work towards in the way that the Bank of England does. Obviously, the government makes decisions that does impact inflation, so he's not completely separate from it. But that first one was an interesting one to start with, given all those things we just said about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, sorry, I know I went off on a little bit of a rant there, but we'll get into the other four now. But yeah, I think that first one sort of shows the vagueness behind all five. They're not. It's not a particularly specific promise. It's not anything that you can easily it's not anything particularly difficult for him to achieve, even if it is specific. So we'll get on to the second one anyway. Growing the economy. So you just said that the economy will grow.
Yeah. Another slightly vague one in that we don't know whether he means by the end of this year the economy will be bigger than it was at the start, or does he mean in any given quarter or part of this year there will be a bit of economic growth, even if overall it's down. We just don't know. Alternatively,
it's predicted that the economy will come out of recession by next summer.
Okay.
So if, for example, it's in recession throughout this year, and then we come out of the recession next year, he can technically claim that is true.
Yeah, because we've
exactly. Even though it starts by dipping, it can then come back up.
I suppose in his mind, as long as it's growing by the next general election, he can say, "Look, we're on the right track. We're doing the right thing." But
this builds into the next one: NHS waiting lists to fall.
Actually, the next one is making sure the national debt is falling.
Have I got my 4 and 5?
I think you have. Sorry, I've got this list
around.
that I wrote when I was watching the speech.
Apologies, I've got my 4 and 5 confused. So we'll move on to laws to stop small boats then.
Wait, no, 3. We've only done 2. 3 is national debt. 4 is NHS. 5 is new laws.
Do you know what, Rory? This is why we need new maths
wow,
things.
People are going to think we planned that.
Yeah. It wasn't planned.
I just can't read.
I just can't read.
Yeah.
Barely literate. How am I on a podcast?
Number 3.
Make sure national debt is falling. Well done. Very good. Thank you.
Lost all thought about that now.
The mask is slipping here. Are pretending to be intelligent.
The national debt one, and we're just going to kind of repeat ourselves with this one like we did with the first and second one, but this is one that I think the government has committed to in the medium term, in the future. It's one that they can effectively wait till the national debt does start to come down and say, yeah, look, we're doing it. It's also all about national debt in relation to GDP and all that type of stuff. The way he phrased it was just like national debt's going to come down, but actually there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, and the OBR, it's one of the targets that the government set itself on. Its fiscal targets is for the national debt to be brought down, and the OBR expects that it will meet that target. So it's another one that is a fairly easy one to hit, and you can play, some sort of data games to make it fit, even if it doesn't.
I think that one kind of plays into the strike issue at the moment, in that one of the reasons why they're so reluctant to give inflation matching or higher than inflation pay rises to public servants is that would be a big lump of money, and their goal of bringing national debt down doesn't really kind of work like that, unfortunately for them. But if at some point in the I think the medium term is, I think they say it's 5 years, the medium term.
Yes.
That is quite a long period of time before that they have to reach that goal, I suppose.
Of course. And then number 4, is small boats.
No.
Oh,
you got it right.
I know, but I thought my notes were wrong. I thought that's what was going on.
Number four is NHS.
Okay, so I did actually just read it wrong. I didn't write my notes wrong.
Yeah, your notes are perfect.
My notes are perfect. I thought my notes were wrong. Okay, I see. So number 4, NHS waiting lists to fall.
Yes,
good. That's actually a tricky one for him. Of the 5, that is actually a pretty difficult one for him. However, NHS waiting list could go up at the beginning of this year, which is expected. It could even hit peak numbers. And then if it was to drop again in 2024, the beginning of 2024, he could then claim that as a win because it's not got a time specific element to this promise.
And is it falling compared to the day that he precisely. Said it, or whenever?
But again, he can play hard and loose, however he wants, really, with the specifics.
And that one, so when he made that speech, that was kind of at the peak talk of the ambulance strikes and all of that type of thing and problems in the NHS. And a lot of the attention was on waiting times for ambulances. And it's interesting that he was talking about waiting lists, which is separate. This is about people with needing surgery, going into hospital, that type of thing. Where you've got this massive backlog that did exist before COVID, but has just got worse and worse during and since the pandemic. That is a real challenge. This kind of waiting list side of it, but also the NHS has these massive troubles in emergency care, which is a whole other issue that needs to be tackled as well. So I think you're right in terms of the 5 priorities, pledges, whatever. That is the tough one, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And then we'll just really quickly move on to small boats because
number 5,
small boats. So this is something that he's sort of obsessed with. This current Conservative government is sort of absolutely obsessed
it's one of
with getting this Rwanda plan and trying to stop boats coming across and all this. They, as we've spoken about before, and I got quite heated about before, they don't seem to listen to the charities which talk about more safe and legal routes. There's a whole... what's the previous podcast? We talk about this in a lot more detail. But absolutely obsessed with this. I don't think it's nearly as... The fact that he's lumping this in with cost of living stuff is mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, and he said these 5 priorities. He said, this is a quote, those are the people's priorities and they're your government's priorities. So he's saying, this is what the people want us to work on, so this is what we will work on. And that number 5... the first 4 are ones that definitely do apply to the entire population. Number 5 feels more tailored towards the Conservative base.
Absolutely.
Which, he does have to make sure he is
but why is it in this 5?
But it is strange.
I've got a couple of reservations about these 5 things, and I started to kind of mini rant at the start about it. But look, I think one of them is this 5th promise being lumped in with the other 4, because you're absolutely bang on with that, with the fact that it's the first 4 related to the economy, which affects everybody irrespective of politics, wants national debt to be brought down, NHS waiting lists to be shorter, inflation to be halved. Like everybody wants that. This 5th one playing into the Tory base, and it's such a niche, it's such a small section of the population which are really focused on this. And in fact, there's a completely other section of the population who believes that the solution is the complete opposite to this solution.
It's interesting because I think everyone agrees that. In an ideal world, people wouldn't be risking their lives of crossing the channel to come to the UK. So there is agreement that there are people making that journey. It is bad. However, the way he phrased this pledge was passing new laws that will enable the government to detain and swiftly remove people arriving in small boats. That is not just saying we want to stop the small boats crisis. That's saying, this is how we're going to do it.
And just to be absolutely clear, the problem that the government has with small boats has absolutely nothing to do with legislation. In fact, under Boris Johnson, they gave themselves a huge amount more powers in things like the Nationality and Borders Bill. Thank you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so they have the powers to do how they want to treat this issue, which, just to be clear, charities and experts in this field don't agree is the right solution. But the solution that they're seeking, which is to try and come down hard on people crossing the channel, they have the laws to do that. They just aren't enforcing them.
It's really... it's like Groundhog Day in that when the Nationality and Borders Bill was going through, it was the exact same discussion where the government was saying, we need these new powers to deter people crossing the channel. and charities that work with refugees and everything were saying, that's not going to work. It didn't work. If you look at the numbers, it didn't work.
No.
Now with this new legislation that they haven't actually introduced yet, but they've promised, saying the exact same thing. They're saying this is what's going to enable us to stop the boats. And
just to be clear as well,
next year are we going to have the same talk with a new piece of legislation? I can't see how it ends really.
And just to be clear as well, passing new laws isn't difficult for a government with the majority of Sunak's size. So this whole you can the thing that annoyed me so much about the speech is that they started it off by saying he said something along the lines of, this is a risky thing for a prime minister to do, to say you can judge this government's success or failure on these 5 points, and here they are.
Yeah.
So come back to us in a year's time, 2 years' time, and you can see whether we've succeeded. And then to come out with these three relatively easy ones, three relatively easy ones that are either going to happen anyway or are not difficult to achieve. One incredibly political one, and just to be clear, number 5, the new laws, not difficult for him to pass the laws themselves.
Yeah, the promise he'll meet that promise of passing a new law.
Yeah,
but
easy.
The
difficulty isn't passing the law;
it won't work to stop small boats.
And then there's the NHS waiting list of all, which is difficult to achieve. But if he wants it to look like he's achieved it, he can move the numbers around in such a way that it looks like that.
It's a shame because I want to, I like the style of politics where it's like, here's some simple metrics you can judge me by. Let's see how I do.
These are too simple though.
Yeah. I think Rory Stewart, when he was minister for, it must have been prisons, he said he would resign if, he gave himself a year, 2 years, and said if certain, I can't remember exactly. I think it was violence in prisons, but he was saying if these metrics aren't coming down in 1 year or 2 years, I'll resign because I'm clearly not doing a good job. I think that's me summing up. I hope that's right. If you can do it in a way where you've got a specific target and it is either yes or no, you are meeting it. I do like that style of politics, but these 5 promises don't really meet that, unfortunately.
Well, Labour said afterwards that they're mostly so easy it would be difficult not to achieve them. These five promises. I agree with you that style of politics is very good. I'm fine with that. It's just these are too simple. They're too easy to achieve. They're too easy to manipulate the numbers with. Yeah. It's not challenging for the government to achieve these. And sort of, in addition to that, it was sort of billed that these are promises that he's going to make with the country, and they are not. My biggest concern is that they're not specific enough. People are struggling with cost of living. They don't want to hear about, we're going to grow the economy. I want to know how you are going to do that. How are you going to grow the economy? How are you going to reduce inflation? And coming out and saying, oh well, we're going to come out with the specifics in a few weeks' time. Make the speech in a few weeks' time when you have the specifics. Yeah. This is anyone could come out with these. Anyone could come out and say, I want to grow the economy. That's not, you're a professional politician with the levers of power. I need a plan from you about how you're going to do that. And I feel like people give Labour and opposition parties such a hard time for coming out with platitudes of we are going to do this without a plan for how you're going to do them. And it almost seems that the media, the wider media, seems to let the government off because they're in government. If Labour, if the Lib Dems, if the Greens had come out and just said, we want to grow the economy and we want national debt to be reduced, and when journalists ask, how are you going to do that? They say, we'll come out with the plan in a few weeks' time. Yeah. That would not fly. That would not fly at all. It is absolutely insane to me that the government seem to get away with coming out with these are not difficult. These are really easy things to come out with without any specifics.
Yeah,
baffling.
I think the sad thing is for most of the country, when it comes to the next election or in a year's time or whatever, those 5 things aren't going to be on people's minds. No. I assume it will be more like, is the money in my pocket enough to pay my bills, to pay for food, whatever, that type of thing, rather than, or did the Prime Minister meet these 5 things that he said a year ago that actually most people have forgotten about? And I think he's probably banking on people forgetting about it. Yeah. Or I think people will forget about it, and then he'll say, when inflation is halved, he'll say, hey, I told you I'd halve inflation, look what we've done. I I think it's a shame, as impassioned as you were there. I do think that, unfortunately, I suppose most of the country will move on from that speech pretty quickly.
No, I think you're probably right. So just moving on slightly, of course, we've spent a lot of time talking about this. These 5 promises weren't the only things in this speech.
There was quite a lot
there's 2 other things that I really want to speak about, unless you've got anything else you want to bring up about this speech. So one of which is innovation and his discussion about innovation. And I just very quickly want to say that this builds into my criticism of the speech again, which is that the hell is he on about? Like, it's, innovation is absolutely great, that we should be innovating. Came up with some statistics of how many jobs innovation has previously. Of course, we should be trying to innovate. How he's going to do that? And he talks about trying to change culture, the culture of innovation. Considering that they're 20-something points behind in the polls, it looks like the maximum he's going to have to change the culture of innovation is less than a year, 2 years.
If I'm honest, I don't remember the innovation part of the speech.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So he just said that we need to innovate more, that we need to get out of this idea that it's all to do with nerdy, geeky people and technology and everything. There are different ways to innovate, and we should continue innovating. Of course we should. Pointless thing to say, especially if you don't have any specifics. So I almost don't want to waste any more time us talking about it, because if you're tuned into politics and you don't remember it, no one else is going to remember it. And rightly so. It was a pointless, another platitude in a very long speech laden with platitudes.
We can talk about maths instead.
Maths, though. We can talk about maths. I actually think the maths thing was really good.
Well,
I actually don't.
I think we're going to disagree on this, so I'm excited to have this discussion.
Okay, this is good. Okay. Do you want to? Right, you give a background.
Should we, give a background for the record.
Yes,
I'm terrible at maths.
I'm not.
I don't know if we should reveal that live on the podcast.
Did you study maths until age 18?
I studied it until age 17 because I took maths A level, then dropped it after a year. So
I see.
I got halfway there.
Nice. I did the full A level.
Yeah. You enjoy it?
Regretfully, I enjoyed the first year of sixth one doing maths.
Yeah.
When you get onto the second year, it got a bit a bit tough.
So for background, basically in the UK, you don't have to study maths until age 18. You will study up until the age of 16, and from there you can drop maths as a subject if you're staying in school. If you leave school to go and do an apprenticeship of some kind, obviously you won't be studying maths. Well, you won't necessarily be studying maths. There's lots of different ways in which 16 to 18-year-olds aren't studying maths, basically. That is, there are other places in the world that do that, but quite a lot of other countries do make young people study maths until age 18. And in Rishi Sunak's speech, it wasn't a policy announcement, was it? It was, he was saying in the country that he'd like to create, pupils at school or just leaving school would study some form of maths up until the age of 18. That was what he said, basically. There wasn't much more detail than that. This was something that the Downing Street kind of put out as a press release before the speech, and it made everyone think, well, this is going to be a speech all about how he's going to make everyone study maths till age 18. Then he did the speech, and it was about one line with no actual proposal. So it was kind of weird in that sense. But I sense from your energy, Ben, that you don't like the idea.
Whatever gives you that idea? I think I've been remarkably upbeat.
Yeah.
No, I'm not a huge fan. No, just to be clear, I think the plan itself, if it was a plan and he'd costed it and come out with some way of actually achieving it, could be okay. But there's so many different variables which we don't know about. So if you're doing a vocational study between 16 and 18, how do you incorporate the maths element into that? We've already got a shortage of maths teachers in the country. How are you going to account for that? Where's the funding coming from? Teaching at times isn't a particularly a job that attracts people too much because of the pay. The pay isn't brilliant. How are you going to address that? In a wider cost of living crisis, this is going to require a lot of attention in order to actually achieve and to be successful and to get through the Commons. I don't believe that he has the long-term drive to be able to get that through. Passing bills, and especially something like this, is so complicated where there's so many different factors. It's not as simple as sort of national policies that are instituted everywhere. This has to be integrated with the Department for Education, with teachers, with all, so many different bodies, and it's going to require a lot of attention. And I think there's the other things that they're going to be focused on at the minute. This isn't a plan.
If this was something that was actually going to happen, it would be part of a wider educational reform announced by government at the beginning of their term. This, and to be fair, the government has admitted that they'll develop this proposal more, but actually kind of moving on it won't happen until after the next election. And if polls are to be believed, the next election will bring us a Labour government. So if you're under 16 and worried about studying maths until age 18, basically you only need to think about if Labour support it or not, and I don't think they do.
No.
So because this isn't going to happen, and I think even the government admits that.
Exactly. So if that's the case, what the hell are they doing? Bringing it up.
Yeah, because this is part. The wider speech was about his vision, and that his vision is a country that takes maths more seriously and is better at numeracy. But in terms of a proposal, it wasn't a policy proposal.
Fine, but it's to do with his priorities for the government, and you either prioritise this and try and get this through before you. Polls are suggesting currently the Conservatives are still 20-something points behind in the polls.
Yeah.
The next election is less than 2 years away, so all odds are you have less than 2 years. If you don't think you can get it through in 2 years, it's not a priority for you.
Yeah.
It's that simple. And why is this being rolled into things to do with halving inflation? If you're setting this out as if we win in 24, this is what we're going to do, roll it into a speech about that. Do
Just
that for a campaign or put it in your manifesto or something like that. Why is it in this thing? Why has it not been fleshed out? Why is there no timelines with it? Why do we not know about how they're going to increase the number of maths teachers? Why do we not know about who's doing vocational studies? As you say, it's because it's not going to happen. If it's not going to happen, why is it in a speech about your priorities?
My personal take is that the actual idea, the principle of making people study maths in some form until 18, I don't have a problem with that. I think improved numeracy would be a good thing, but my criticism is basically the same as you in that he's not making a serious proposal, and it's not going to happen in the next 2 years, in the next year before the election.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of problems like the lack of maths teachers issue, but so much criticism I saw of that part of the speech was from people who were really opposed in principle to the idea of teaching 16 to 18-year-olds maths, and it was it's not saying it's not all about maths.
Of course,
you just want blah blah blah, which I think slightly missed the mark of the actual flaw in the proposal. I see where people are coming from with that. It's not I think maths is a very important subject. I totally understand that people are saying why isn't it focused on any other subject. I understand that because if you've already got your mind set on you want to do something in the arts, if you want to and if you want to you decide you want to do something with history, if you want to work at a museum or something like that, and you decide that maths isn't a priority for you, why should the government force you between 16 and 18 to I understand that argument. I still think that maths is applicable to so many different jobs that it's fine to put a focus on. My main criticism with it is just that it's not a policy. It's not been fleshed out. And for Sunak to come in, as Prime Minister and try and pitch himself as the sort of the realist, the person who's in really serious economic difficulty at the minute, I'm going to come in, I'm going to try and fix this, to then roll into this wider speech, largely about the economy, an ill thought out, ill fleshed out plan about maths just dropped in there vaguely out of nowhere. It seemed so out of place. I don't understand what it's doing. I don't understand much of why he did any, why he said most of the things in this speech. But the maths thing just seemed so particularly out of place. Yeah.
His communication strategy. Look, as you know, and as longer viewers of the podcast will know, I've had an argument with Zach before about Sunak's communication strategy and if he's any good at it. My argument had previously been that I thought he was quite a good media communicator. I thought that in COVID, when he did all of his stuff to do with Eat Out to Help Out, all that, he was quite good with that. He was quite good in front of a podium. I'm rapidly changing my view. I really don't think he's that good. I think that he seems to hide a lot. He seems to not really want to be in front of the camera. He seems to think that no press is good press.
Yeah, I think he got... I guess I'm speculating here, but I think during the pandemic he probably got used to... He had really high approval ratings when he was announcing the furlough scheme and basically giving out money, and I think he got used to that, and now it's been quite a sharp turn for him.
I don't think he can deal with being the bad guy, and I think that he thought that it'd be a lot easier than it is. And I think it's really disgraceful that he's almost in hiding, and this is the only speech he's made that we can. We've been doing this a little while now, 76 days. There's been so little to talk about, and we're in a really difficult point as a country. And I think it's because he doesn't want to talk about much.
Yeah,
he doesn't want to come out. He doesn't want to talk to the media. He doesn't want to announce things. He's much more comfortable hiding behind the scenes.
I'm going to say I sympathise with him on one aspect when I don't think that's the right word to use, but whatever, I'll say it. I sympathise with the fact that he came in as Prime Minister with about a year and a bit to go before the next election amid disastrous polling for his party. It's a weird thing where he's a new Prime Minister, so naturally you want to set out your vision and kind of, ideals rather than not just specific policy. But you can't get away with just doing that when you're so far behind in the polls and the country is in the state that it is, So it's not good enough to do that. But we'll see whether he can turn it around before the next election.
No, we will. We'll have to see whether he does turn this around. I mean, the thing is, the wider economy isn't the only thing that he's struggling with at the minute.
Yeah.
So strikes have been sort of going on all through December. They seem to be sort of slowly coming to an end at the beginning of January. Some of the larger strikes, some like rail strikes, things like that. There were some that are still continuing through January. There's been it's been back in the news, though, to do with the government's interaction with the unions about strikes. Do you want to sort of run us through why this has been in the news lately?
So the strike seems to go through waves of, wow, there's a lot of strikes happening right now. Then there's a period of calm and then they all hit again. And it's like, there's more and more strikes happening. And I think we've got the National Education Union are going to announce whether teachers are going to go on strike soon. So there's still lots of things kind of going on in the strike world, as it were. Amid all of this, the government confirmed that they would, or they plan to introduce legislation to basically introduce and enforce minimum service levels on certain industries, which means that when industrial action is taking place, those industries have to ensure that a minimum level of service is being met. The industries in question are fire, ambulance, and rail. Those are the ones where the government would set levels that have to be met. And if those levels aren't met, then unions are at risk of being sued if they don't provide workers to meet those levels. And there is even talk of workers refuse to work to meet those levels, that they could be sacked. But we have to wait and see what the actual legislation looks like. For other sectors, including health, like non-emergency healthcare, education, and borders as well, they are saying that service levels would continue to be voluntary, but the government would reserve the right to implement them if voluntary talks didn't work. So that's their big legislation to crack down on striking effectively. Important to note that if this passes, it won't impact the current wave of strikes. The current wave of strikes can only be dealt with by an agreement being reached between the government and the unions. So it doesn't solve that problem for them. In fact, I think it creates an even bigger problem in that the legislation as they've described it would create already has created a massive backlash from unions who basically say it's a massive attack on the right to strike, a fundamental part of democracy, as well as calling it unworkable and all sorts of other things, and they say they'll fight it. Mick Lynch in particular said, he said, we'll fight it. It was a bit like Churchill. It was on the streets. We'll fight it, in Parliament. But basically anywhere that you can fight the legislation, he will fight it. So if they go ahead with this, they'll have an almighty fight on their hands, I think.
Do you think they'll get it through? Do you reckon the government will be successful?
I think they've got I think they will, but I think actually the actual content in the legislation will not be as strict as it was initially described. I think it will, because when it was first rumoured that they were going to do this, it was like these 5 areas they're going to enforce minimum service levels, and now it's actually 3 levels they'll enforce them, and the other 3. See, my numeracy skills need improving. But the other sectors, it will be voluntary, whatever.
Yes.
I think actually it will be more like that. It will be like giving the government the power to do this, but it will be still focused on voluntary agreements. I don't think that means the unions won't oppose it. I think they still will, because it is a fundamental question of the right to strike. Labour have also said they'll repeal it if they win. So even if they get it through, chances are it will be repealed in the coming future.
It seems to be all of these things. Seems to be a government that are planning things that are going to take a very, very long time. under the knowledge that they probably won't be in for
when
the next
actually
election.
things happening right now need solutions that
They're not.
There
not
were
addressing.
lots of talks today between ministers and the various union leaders on, I think it was rail, education, and health. That was kind of billed as, this is a bit of a breakthrough. We're having all these talks, whatever, but none of them really seem to have paid off that well. The health and education ones, they came out. Health was described as missed opportunity, bitterly disappointing by the various unions. On teaching, they said there was no concrete progress, but there was a promise of further discussions. The only one that seemed, I'm going to use the word positive, even though it's probably a bit optimistic. Mick Lynch came out of that meeting and said he was neither more nor less hopeful, and that they'd agreed on further talks later this week. So that was like, something is happening. Maybe there's a bit of movement there, but the other ones, health and education, didn't seem like there was any progress there. In fact, one of the union negotiators who came out of the meeting, he was like properly angry. So it seemed like it might have even made it worse. So ambulance, nurses, possibly teachers, they're going to keep striking, basically.
Yeah. Well, it's not a particularly fun start to the year. No. First podcast of the year.
We've only got 24 more days of Rishi until we're at 100 days. We do
indeed. And then we'll have to have a think about what we're going to do with the podcast going forward. But only about a month left of this variation of the podcast. If you've got any thoughts or anything on the podcast, feel free to tweet them at me, which is at TLDRBen, or at TLDR News UK.
On the subject of following people on Twitter,
yes,
I'm exclusive here. I'm thinking of setting up a at TLDR Rory Twitter account.
Huge.
Maybe. I need to get that name, because if this goes out before I claim that Twitter handle, someone's
going to nick it.
Is going to have it.
I might do it.
It might not even be TLDR branded. Who knows?
Oh,
I have my own Twitter account, but it's private, and I could just rebrand that, but then people could go through my likes. There's nothing bad in there. It's just I'm not. It goes back like 10 years, so who knows?
So 2 things to everybody watching. Number one. Number one.
I've not done this very well.
Number one, tweet at TLDR Ben if you want Rory to start his own new Twitter account. And number 2, I've got a bounty on any of Rory's old tweets you can find that will help me cancel him.
Yeah.
I
never tweet.
No? How confident are you that no one's going to find any likes or anything?
Well, I think I'm going to make a new account. I'm pretty confident no one will.
I'm confident in our audience.
Yeah.
I really am.
Well, we'll see. Let Ben know on Twitter if I should make a Twitter account.
I'm very firmly in favour.
And if you don't think I should, you don't have to tell Ben that.
I think it should be...
Basically, I'm going to do it, but I just feel like I want some positive encouragement to doing it. That's it, basically. I'm not confident enough to do it myself.
By looking through my Twitter account.
Yeah, basically.
I think so. And if any of you do follow any of our accounts on Twitter, then follow Rory as well. After you followed at TLDR Ben. Thanks, everyone. Bye.